Just answering questions with waptek. Someone asked me a question concerning the usage of and safe or not safe usage of a 45 caliber slash 410 insert for a 26.5 millimeter presumed flare gun. These are really large overbore handguns that are used for firing flares. Specified the PB Chimera pedal ballistics. It's a flare launcher. He said he wanted to be able to find out whether or not cowboy rounds would do the job versus getting actual bear rounds if he was in an area that actually had grizzly bears. Now, this is going to be a really dumb answer, but the device you're talking about isn't really good for firing 45 caliber bullets, and it isn't really good for firing 410. What you should do is build a special made long barrel for 410, because that's required if it's smoothbore, or do some weird 41 caliber barrel and chamber for the 410 shotgun shell. And if it's a 45 insert, since it's supposed to be a 45 in the first place, get a real 45 insert. And yes, the one you're talking about can tolerate quite easily firing quote-unquote 45 bear round. Usually that's not a 45 Colt, but okay, and or cowboy loads. And any one of them will work just as badly or as good as the other. I highly recommend you don't do this unless you get one that's literally just for 45 Colt or whatever cartridge you want. Using a combination one like that makes it to where it'll have a 410 chamber in it that goes for long distance, and then the 45 only goes in part way and has this long throw distance where it's losing pressure and kind of throwing the bullet at the rifling rather than having it engage it immediately. So I do not recommend that if you really need it to work well and really to be accurate. Now, of course, the question is going to come up, can you make one? 410 shotgun shells are pretty easy to chamber for and or get a barrel for, because there is a literal 41 caliber barrel material available. It's a 1/4 inch Schedule 10 pipe. And as long as it's got rifling of some kind, it'll work. It will do nothing for shot. And you can also get one that's kind of that sort of diameter at 0.416. And again, it's a shotgun shell, it doesn't matter. So let's just skip that and go to the 45 Colt. The chamber for a 45 Colt is 0.48 inches. And you can jam a 410 in if you want to, but that's not what the point here is. And it has a 45 caliber barrel, but it's 0.452 inches. Now, there is a metal tubing diameter that's literally 45 caliber. It's 1/2 inch outer diameter, 0.45 inch inner diameter, drawn over mandrel tubing, but it has only a 0.025 inch wall thickness. That's referred to on the website as number 23 or 23 gauge metal thickness, but that'll be accurate. The one that's got thicker walls to it, that's as close as you can find, according to what I'm able to look up, is 0.454 inner diameter, which is, it's off by 0.002. It'll still work. It'll have to be rifled if it's short, period. And that's a 0.75 inch outer diameter. It's much tougher. And that would be reasonably accurate, but not as accurate as the 50. It's going to be 45. Now, if you wanted to build a chamber-based gun, which is basically what you would be doing if you make one out of a piece of tubing and don't have to mill or alter anything, easy to make, very low accuracy versions can be made by just using a 0.481 inner diameter or thereabouts metal tubing, and that is going to have an outer diameter of 0.625 inches. And the thickness on it is 0.072 inches thick, and that'll work. And that'll be listed as the number 15 thickness or gauge, and that'll work okay. You can also do a very loose diameter, doing a 0.482 inner diameter, and this is where it gets kind of practical for a flare gun. Again, one of them's 3/4 inch outer diameter, but another one is 1 inch outer diameter. Now this is heavy as hell. It's not the right bore diameter for firing a 45, but if you rifle it, even if the rifling is useless, this would work in a pinch. But again, if you already have one of these things, it'll probably work just fine. if you have a Petal Ballistics Chimera flare launcher, they're really, really durable. So it won't require that you get something perfect for the cartridge and durable. The ones you buy on the market are aluminum plugs, fake cartridges, with a hole drilled in it and a rifled barrel stuck in it. But again, because of that, you could put a real rifled barrel in. You can get a .45 caliber barrel and have a chamber reamed in it, or get one that already has a chamber in it, and clean it up on the outside to make it nice and round, completely symmetrical, and put it in there in place of the metal tube that's in it. As long as it's rifled, it's legal, and I recommend getting a real .45 chamber if you really think you might run into something like this. Having something to just go shoot around with, the one you have will work fine. And again, you're using a flare gun that's designed to be as durable as possible. It's made entirely out of stainless steel last time I checked. And that's my answer for it. Now, people might have noticed some of my YouTube videos about how to DIY your own firearm. You can. I always recommend start off with a 26-inch length of metal tube barrel material, or buy a real barrel, and then build a gun from that, because that way it's never under 26 inches and it'll always be legal, pretty much any configuration you want to do. And the least regulated one of the bunch is going to be, depending on where you are, a pistol grip only firearm. And yeah, you can do this with a flare gun very easily. And I recommend, if you're going to go camping or in the hills or whatever, and you're worried about being, dealing with something like this, take a shotgun, take a 12 gauge. A fold up in half $100 Walmart gun would be your best bet. A lot more effective, a lot more efficient, a lot more generic and legit. But if you happen to have this particular flare gun, or a really durable one, it'll work. And again, to point this out, you can just get a 26-inch length of metal tubing that will work as a barrel. There's dozens of different sources that will work correctly with a 12 gauge, and just skip this. And it'll have more boom, it'll have more violence and loudness and scariness, and it will drive away something that might be coming after you. If you're worried about grizzlies, that might be a better idea. And it's not illegal to do this in most places, but some places it is. But it's just as illegal as putting in the .45 caliber insert. So again, please get a better insert, but what you have will probably work. And as long as you're using a all-metal flare gun, you're fine. Next question. A Chinese national who is into growing marijuana has contacted me on my channel to tell me I'm an idiot. There won't be any human being who will be alone for his or her whole life when they get that technology. It will be the doomsday. The stupidest countries are the USSR and Russia, and the United States. The Chinese government will sponsor a company to get or steal Western technologies to develop a biochip intended to use on human bodies, and it will be exactly like the one-child policy mandatory device, powered by biological current, and has the same data interaction like Apple AirTag. Apple AirTag is an active device, uses several milliwatts of energy. You can't derive that from a human. Your argument's invalid and it's dumb. Also, brain scanning technologies, maybe the Chinese will get that from Elon Musk. Okay, and this person's not allowed to post because he's off on a tangent. His entire channel is dedicated to growing marijuana in China, which I don't know if he's allowed to do, and I don't know if he wants to do that. I don't know if he's a Chinese citizen or an expat. Think about this. Everyone in a country, they all have a chip in their bodies. No need to worry about battery life. Each one can detect and find other ones. When you're walking on the streets, it can search for nearby people with 30 meters and records their data. Who they are, where you guys encountered. Okay, I'll just cut to the chase. What you're talking about is a cell phone only. No, you do not have microchips in your body. No, the space aliens talking to you aren't real. And no, an unpowered chip doesn't work that way. Now, if you're in an environment that's saturated with radio signals, and they're above, I'm going to put it at like 5 watts, and they're aimed in a very straight line, and you pass through that pathway, that narrow beam, and if it's able to energize a chip and get a reaction out of it, like the tags you have at the store from when to prevent people from stealing, that can technically give some data, and monitoring that will give you more information than some installation in your body would. It would just tell people where you are that moment. That can be used to infer more data about you than you could collect by spying on a person. And again, most people don't need to worry about microchips in their blood or whatever you're bullshitting about. They're carrying cell phones. Most of you do not carry a cell phone that you have control over the data for. Most of you don't care. We like our convenience. We don't care if they have our data, and we don't care if they keep tabs on us. They tell us they're doing it. The they I'm referring to is the phone company. It's the shop you walk into. They used to post this as a policy, but these days they just say, if you enter our building, we're allowed to mine your information all we want to. And this has happened in enough court cases when it actually came to a head that it's not in question anymore. But let's go on. The lights in the streets have the function like cellular communication base stations. They collect your data and send it to servers. Depending on where you are, that's actually a real thing, but that's because those are lights. Those are detectors for when people cross the street and they take photos. It's for people running lights, as in red lights. These stations are planted in public areas, supermarket, hospitals, park. You are a human being. You are not a lone wolf. You need to buy groceries and meet other people. But when you do that, your activities give the data about yourself. You're accurate about the information, but you're inaccurate as absolute fuck about how it's done. Now I'm going to explain why I have a bad reaction to this and why this person isn't allowed to post. Number one, this person is posting information that's just accurate enough on just enough of a subject matter to make it worth, responding to. Letting the person get away with inserting the wrong information on how it's done, and most importantly, how you can do anything about it, is wrong, and I'm not letting you post. Next, this is the ravings of paranoid schizophrenia. Or not. Now, let's talk about what really happens in the real world. Okay, you walk around, we all know this. Any camera can record a video recording. And if it gets enough data points of your face, or even if it's just you going across a pathway and it grabs a couple of dozen frames of your face, that information can be composited together to figure out who you are. No, it's not the enhance button from the TV shows, but it works a little bit like that. By grabbing multiple frames, you can get enough of the resolution cleaned up, at least some of it, to recognize the person individually and get it down to maybe one person in a city pretty easily. Again, you have to infer it from where they are, what's going on, what time of day, all this other crap. You can't just do it just from the images. It's not how it really works. But just from the images, you can get it narrowed down very, very good. Yes, that happens. And yes, there's shit tons of cameras out there. And that's real. It is not real that chemtrails are being used to put nano RFID chips in your eyes so that they reflect a certain barcode pattern or some other crazy convoluted shit you might have heard or read. That doesn't work. It doesn't exist. No one offers any proof of it. On the other end of it, you can download literally an app and prove that it can identify you. There's a face recognition app to unlock your phone. It's not perfect. You can fake it, but it's pretty damn accurate. And remember, with all the other data you leave behind, it can be used to make a profile of you. If you find two people with an identical appearance on two different ends of town at the same time, you know you have two data points that can be confused. And the more you find out where they go, then you can narrow it down to this individual and this individual with the same face print. I guess we'll call it a face print. It's probably a website called Faceprint. But anyway, maybe that's what happens when I bump my head on a door. But anyway, but none of this involves RFID tags or secret communications or implants. That's not real. And yes, you will find people who find examples of implant material, items, things, because they want to avoid something simple. How do you make this to where it doesn't work anymore? You can go out wearing clothing and eyewear and such that make it to where you're really hard to track. It doesn't make it impossible, but it reduces it. And you reduce your footprint in the world. I'm on the net like a lot of you. If you weren't on the net, you wouldn't be watching this. And you can reduce your footprint. I have a very small footprint. Just learn how to reduce it. You can eliminate it if you want to live completely off of that cyber grid. You have to learn how. But lying to yourself about being done through RFID tracking of bioimplants through soap or something crazy like that, which will come up next, I'm sure, that doesn't solve anything. That's just you being crazy. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck.